Hi, my name is Jen Watson and I'm the Student Success Center Technician at ACC. I create workshops like these throughout the fall and spring semesters. If you ever have questions about a workshop, feel free to contact me. My contact information will be included in the last slide. Today we will be discussing the Modern Language Association, or MLA. If you have been instructed to write in MLA format, then this workshop is for you. Part of my job in the Student Success Center is to help students with their writing, and I have a lot of contact with instructors on where students generally have trouble. I designed this workshop to cover some key aspects of research writing, style, and format. In this workshop, we will discuss plagiarism, credible versus not credible sources, how to use the library for research, MLA formatting. I will give you an MLA title page example, show you how to create a works cited page, and how to use in-text citations. At this point, I'm sure you have heard of what plagiarism is, or at least heard the term. It's important to understand what plagiarism is because it will help you understand the need for formattings like MLA or APA. Plagiarism is a broad term that covers many aspects of outright copying and some not so obvious copying. So first, copying without giving the original author credit is the obvious definition. Not using quotation marks correctly is also a form of plagiarism. You must put quotation marks around all of what you are using from someone else's work, and you must not change the original wording in any way. You do not use quotation marks if you are putting someone else's work into your own words. Giving false information about the source. Sometimes you might find that during your research you forget to record pieces of information that you need in your citations, such as dates or page numbers. If you make any of this information up, then you are also plagiarizing. Finally, copying images, videos, and music without giving credit is also considered plagiarizing. All of this said, please make sure that you keep track of your sources and be careful how you use them, because there are disciplinary actions instructors and schools can take if you get caught using others' work inappropriately. Something else I'd like to touch on is the difference between credible and not credible sources. Making sure that you use credible sources will help you with your overall research, and fitting your sources into MLA format will be that much easier. Some examples of credible sources are peer-reviewed journals, websites from credible institutions. These usually have .edu, .gov, or .org in the URL, and the more citable information, the better. Some examples of not credible sources are blogs. Blogs can be written by anybody and are not peer-reviewed in any way. It's okay to use blogs in some circumstances, but you must recognize a source for what it is. Wikipedia. Please do not ever list Wikipedia as a reference in your works cited list. Wikipedia is also an example of something that can be written by anyone. However, I will say that it can be very useful in your initial research. You can use Wikipedia to discover credible sources by using the source list at the end of the entry that you have looked up, but you must take this extra step. Author unknown. Most people who write anything want recognition for it, so if there is no author, you must consider why that is. However, sometimes you'll find on larger websites that the articles do not have authors. When that happens, you need to consider if the website organization itself is the author. For example, you will see this sometimes with sites like history.com and government websites. Old material, for example, medical data, you also need to pay attention to when your source was published. If you're writing about a topic like brain surgery, but your sources are from the 1950s, they lose their credibility because they are no longer relevant. However, if you are writing about the French Revolution, then the publication date doesn't matter as much. Now that you have an understanding of the difference between credible and not credible sources, you need to know where to find credible sources. Like I mentioned before, you can start by Googling your keywords, and then most likely Wikipedia will give you your first answers. If you know nothing about your topic, this can be a good place to start so that you can begin forming ideas and opinions, which will give you more keywords to search. When you get to this point, the best thing to do to do is use the library databases that are available to you. Our library at ACC has several databases you can use, including ProQuest, Gale, and JSTOR. These databases will give you quality information from journals and scholarly works that Google will not. However, they are more sensitive than Google, so you'll need to use multiple keywords to find what you are looking for. The research will take time and you will need to read through a lot of information. Many students give up too quickly when doing this kind of research, so make sure that you stick with it. Now that we have explored what to know before you start writing, we can get into what MLA is. MLA regulates formatting and text citations and works cited lists. I like to look at this like the laws around driving a car. Everyone must do the same thing as to not cause accidents. Using a format like MLA acts the same way. Everyone must follow the same rules so that the audience, publishers, and teachers can follow along and see your proof easily and without a doubt. It is most commonly used in the study of humanities, literature, philosophy, art, religion, and music. Most students are familiar with MLA in some way, whether they knew it was called MLA or not. Beginning in elementary school, your English teacher would have taught you some of its citations and formatting rules. MLA is based in the humanities, so naturally English teachers would have taught you to write this way. But it is important to note that MLA is not the only formatting available. There are several different formats, including APA, that you may be asked to use throughout your college career based on the subject matter. MLA lays the base for what is accepted, but instructors or publishers have the right to change whatever they want for whatever reason. So always follow your instructor's directions. If you get your paper proofread, make sure the reader also understands what the directions are. We will now discuss the formatting of MLA. There is no title page in MLA. The title and your personal information will go on the first page of your writing. The paper should be double-spaced, 12-point font, and 1-inch margins. Most of these requirements are already set to default on Word. Please do not try to alter these defaults to make your paper longer or shorter. It's very obvious and will end up getting you into trouble. Also, I will mention that there are no longer specific restrictions on which font to use. Word now defaults to Calibri, which is alright to use, but traditionally you would use Times New Roman. Name, instructor's name, course, and the due date go on the upper left corner of the first page. And you will create a header in the upper right corner with your last name and the page number. This is an example of what the first page of an MLA paper looks like. You have your header on the top margin with your last name and page number. To do this on a Word document, double-click in the top margin, tab over to the right, type your last name and add a space, then insert the page number. You will see that in the top ribbon and select the option Current Position. Close out of the header and you should see it repeat on each page. If you have trouble with this, YouTube gives examples of how to do this and it is a great resource. After you insert a header, you need to left align your name, your instructor's name, the class name, and the date of the paper that is due. Following that information, center a title for your paper. Note that the title is in 12-point font, not underlined, and no bolding. Press enter one more time and you will begin your introduction. Remember that your instructor may decide to change any of this information, so be sure to double check any instructions or examples the instructor gives you. The last page of your paper should be the works cited list, also known as a bibliography. The works cited list follows a simple format. Alphabetized by author's last name. If there isn't an author, then alphabetized by the first letter of the title of the source. Include a hanging indent, but do not add an extra space between sources. This means that the author's name should stick out and the rest of the information be tabbed over, making it easier for the reader to find a specific source. To do this, you can simply tab the information over, or you can highlight, right-click, click on paragraph, and use the drop-down box for hanging indent. Finally, remove hyperlinks from the source. Nothing should be in blue or underlined. Most likely, most of your sources will be from the internet. Microsoft Word will automatically turn a www dot into a hyperlink, which makes it blue and underlined. That is not the proper format, so you'll have to right-click on each hyperlink and click on Remove Hyperlink. There's a lot of information that can be included in your Works Cited page. It is important to be aware and record this information as you are going through the research process. Some techniques are to create note cards for each source, where you will fill out the entire citation on the front of the card and then write a summary of what the source was about on the back. Or you can start the Works Cited list in a Word document immediately, adding on to it as you go along. In the past, I have seen some students attempt to keep each source open in their laptop browser to eventually record them. Do not do this. Make sure you record all the information somewhere, not just the website, so that if anything happens, you will have the information and will be able to find the source again in the future. You do not want to realize that you have lost location of all your sources right before you are supposed to turn in your paper. MLA has set up the way you record your sources on this simple list. All you need to do is plug in the information that you have. The punctuation that is listed here is what you will use in the citation, so please don't ignore that part of it. Some instructors that you have may mark you down for misuse of punctuation in citations. In most cases, for a book, you should have an author, the title of the book, the publisher, and the publication date. For an article in a journal or newspaper, you would have an author, title of the article, the container of the article, meaning the name of the journal or newspaper, the number, the publication date, and the location, if you got it from the internet. So you can see that you would skip the little pieces if you don't have them and just plug in what you do. When you write this information out in the Works Cited format, it will look something like this. It will probably be shorter. Do not worry about the length as long as you have all the information available listed. In the next few slides, I will give you some examples of how this comes together using a book, an essay in a book, and a web page. Probably the most simple citation you will have is from a book that you have a hard copy of. First, you list the author, last name, and then first name with a period. Next is the title of the book, in this case, The Hummingbird House. Note that the title of the book is italicized. Next, we have the publisher, and then the date of publication. It is as simple as that. You should be able to find all of this information on the title page of whatever book you are using. Our next example is an essay in a book. So this book is a collection of essays, so it is not good enough to just record the book itself. You have to differentiate the smaller work inside of the larger work. Again, we have the author, and then the title of the essay in quotation marks. Next is the container, meaning the larger work, which is the Cambridge Companion to Jane Austen. The container is italicized, setting it apart from the title of the essay that is in quotation marks. Articles from journals are set up in the same way. This container has editors, which you put next, and the publisher, the publication date, and in this case, we are putting the page numbers where the essay is found in the container. Make sure that you pay attention to page numbers while you are researching and using your sources in your writing, especially if you are quoting or paraphrasing from a source. You will need these page numbers, so write them down so that you don't have to look for them later. The last example is a web page. This web page does not have an author, so the citation begins with the title of the page in quotation marks and would be alphabetized this way in the Works Cited list. Next is the container, or the name of the website in italics, which is WebMD, the publication date, and then the location, which is the full URL with the hyperlink removed. Please don't think that you need to memorize all of this. You can find information on how to cite sources on the Purdue OWL. There are also citation makers that you can use. I do recommend that you understand how citations are built, because sometimes citation makers are not accurate and cannot tell if you have entered information wrong. Also, if you know that you are going to have to write a lot of research papers, it is helpful to write the citations yourself. It doesn't take long to start memorizing the order of information. You might find that doing it this way is easier. Here we have an example of what your works cited page should look like. You can see that there is still a header with your last name and page number, and the title of the page is Works Cited and centered on the page. Again, nothing fancy, nothing bold, underlined, or enlarged. The page is double-spaced and there are no extra spaces. One source after another. Also, here you can see how the hanging indent highlights who the author is of the source, which is where we transition to in-text citations. You will use in-text citations, also known as parenthetical references, when quoting, summarizing, or paraphrasing. Its purpose is to inform your audience that you are referring to someone else's ideas and words. Therefore, whenever you are using someone else's ideas in your writing, you must let the reader know. We do this by adding the original author's last name and page number to the sentence that you are writing. The whole citation for one author would look like Watson is the author, 201 is a page number in parentheses, period. Or two authors, Watson and White, 201, with a period. This citation would come at the end of your sentence, with the period coming after the citation. Note that there is no punctuation inside of the parentheses. To tie the works cited list with these in-text citations, realize that the reason you are putting the author's last name is because that is what is easiest to find on your works cited list. So as the reader, if I am interested in this Watson source, I should be able to flip to your works cited page and find Watson easily. If not, then this is a form of plagiarism. As a proofreader, I'll make sure that every author you list in your in-text citations show up in your works cited list. You do not always have to set up with a citation at the end of the sentence. You could break up the citation by writing Jennifer Watson stated 201 at the end. As long as you are including both the author and the page number, you have informed the audience where you got your information. In MLA, when you have 3 or more authors, you write something like, the authors are reported Watson et al. 76 in parentheses period. You only need to list the first author and then the Latin phrase et al. Period, meaning and everyone else. This is the only time you'll see punctuation inside of the parentheses because you need the period at the end of et al. The following are examples of how you can use in-text citations. The first is a quotation. Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry was marked by a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, 263. The author, Wordsworth, is listed, and the page number the information came from is at the end. You should always have a citation with a quotation, but you also need a citation when you paraphrase or summarize someone else's work. For example, Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process, 263. Again, you have the author and the page number listed, even though it is not a direct quote. There are many resources available to help you through the research and writing process. The most common is the Purdue OWL, which you can find at purdue.owl.edu, or there is the MLA Handbook if you are interested in purchasing something that you can take notes in and have at your side while you are researching. Thank you for following along with this workshop. If you need any help along the way, feel free to contact me on my email address, watsonj@alpinacc.edu, or if you would like any proofreading or tutoring, you may contact the tutor coordinator by email, tutoring@alpinacc.edu. Please enter the URL into your browser to fill out a very short survey. Surveys like these help me present the best workshops possible.